Hey, what is going on, everybody? Invisible Boilon back again for another Marvel Strike Force video. Some people are saying that's my new superhero name, albeit probably temporary. Today we're going to be on a part 2, stemming from my video from before about Darkhold gear requirements and how much orange gear you needed to get them all up to the tier 15 and 16 range. Now, I decided to do an SBC Calculator using what I believe is most, if not all, of the sources for them in the game and try to come up with something somewhat accurate to how many you probably will be getting on a weekly and monthly basis, depending on the content that you're running. Now, because we're in such of this gear crunch, I did this mainly so I could get a bigger picture about how many characters typically that I could max gear per month with the type of SBCs that we get. Now, of course, this also doesn't include like events and things like that, so it's more predictable stuff. Now, some things to note, this is from the perspective of being done Dark Dimension 3 and 4. So for a lot of veterans, you won't have this big burst of so for a lot of veterans, rather, we don't have this big burst of income from SBCs anymore that newer players do. So if you're in this category still, you're probably going to be in a better position for now because you're likely not have geared a ton of characters that we would have done so in the past, including myself, which is largely why I have less SBCs than some others. But regardless, I think it's still an issue, and we'll take a look at exactly why. So without further ado, let's get this show on the road. Okay, so spreadsheets, of course, and we finally got that back into working order. So you guys may have seen this. I brought this up, like I said, in a previous video earlier on in the week, and so this is the Darkhold G13 to G16 requirement table. Go take a look at that video if you haven't seen it. I'm not going to be going over this in totality, but where I want to kind of really point out is the SBC category, because that's kind of what we're talking about today. So you can see with all of the Darkhold characters how many SBCs they require. This includes gear 13 to 15, but also includes any of those orange pieces that they use in their G16 category, and so it's quite a bit. 9,480. I'll zoom in a little bit. 9,480 SBCs required that you're going to need for the whole team. Now, when I did the video, I was at like somewhere around 5,000 SBCs, and so that really got me thinking about like where else can I come up with these, and where do you get them from, and how many do you get, on a weekly and monthly basis. So that's kind of what spurred me on to do this calculator video, and the spreadsheet related to that. And of course, there's other problems as well. Catalysts, orange catalysts, some arcane powder as well, which is a pretty big issue. But unfortunately, that's not part of this video here. I do recommend some of the things that I mentioned in that video, though, which is additional ways to farm these things. So again, if you haven't watched that video, go back and check it out. It's quite informative in my opinion. So I want to jump over onto the new spreadsheet, and this is what I'm going to call the SBC Calculator. And so I did this to the best of my ability. I know that in some areas, what we'll get to, it could have definitely been mathed out better, for sure. There's some issues with the percentages in some of the orbs, for example, which is why I definitely didn't math that out properly. But we can look at the more static sources of SBCs, and we'll start at the top here. So we have the High Roller and the World Warrior milestones. These really are not very good. Pay less attention about the daily category. You probably really want to look at the weekly category, because that's where I've kind of balanced it out, and then I just multiplied the number by 4 to get the monthly or 28-day total, because some of these things are different, right? Some of them are weekly, some of them are 2 weekly for the raid seasons and that, and then the monthly. So yeah, things are different there. So you don't get very much from the High Roller milestone. You get about 1 a day, more or less, if you're spending around the 1 million gold mark. Now, I know that some people, spend a little bit more, and I think there's maybe 1 or 2 more in there, but it's really nothing substantial. And so if it's highlighted in red, that means it's really not good. It's a very low amount of SBC sources. I counted up the World Warrior milestone, assuming you complete the whole thing, and it's only about 15, and this is per week, which is pretty poor. The raid season milestone and the all daily objective, assuming you've maxed Wolverine, is actually some of the most weekly SBCs. Now, the raid season milestone, I counted this up to about the milestone 39 mark. This is about 140 million points. Now, I know not everyone is going to get that, but it does include about 200 per week. So it's 400 actually total in the raid season milestone, but I divided it by 2 because it's a 2-week milestone to get the weekly version. So that was about 200 there, which is quite substantial. And that's the best, actually, what we have on the table so far. Now, secondly is the all daily objective. Now, this is, again, if you've maxed Wolverine, it turns into... Now, I don't know if I have that in my game to show you. You can probably have seen it yourself. The daily objective here, down at the bottom, you get 20 SBCs per day. So, again, times that by 7. That's 140 per week, which I have in here. And so that's actually not too bad, all things considered, from the other sources. So that's pretty good. The Raid Store and the Blitz Store. Now, we talked about this a little bit in my previous video, because this is where I recommended you to buy it. Now, the Blitz Store is there all the time, every reset. The Rated is not, but it's usually there. Like, I would say at least 2 out of 3 resets that it's there. But for the purposes of this, you know, it's 10 for 2,000 credits. So what I did was I just assumed that at least half the time you're buying this. So that's why I got, instead of 30, because you would get a 30 over 3 resets, I just cut it in half. And so I said, okay, you're going to get 15 every day, roughly, if you're doing this all the time. So that gets you to about 105 weekly. And then 420 monthly over 28 days. So these two are actually the second, best after these. So it's not too bad. And so if you're in a SBC crunch, both the Blitz Store and the Raid Store is definitely something that I recommend you doing if you need to get more of these. Now, the catalysts have changed tier 12. You get 9 SBCs per attempt, which is 27 per day. And there's 3 of these challenges per week. So that's about 81 per week. So it's not terrible. It's kind of in the middle. The Relic Hunt tier 7 actually doesn't equate to too much. It's once a month and you get 300 total. I believe it's 100 SBCs per attempt, and there's 3 attempts on that one. And yeah, it's not super stellar, but it basically generates 70 a week in terms of that. It is what it is, I guess. It's worth doing and not because I did it like a year and a half ago, probably at this point. They bumped it up, they reworked it slightly. I think they need to rework it again, but frankly, I don't know what more they can do. Maybe they need to do a brand new Flash event that includes teal crap, and then like include more SBCs. I don't know. Relic Hunt is in a very weird spot right now because a lot of people obviously don't want to gear hand characters, and rightfully so. And a lot of people have just out of principle not geared hand characters because they suck, right? They're just fucking trash. So you're not losing out on a lot, but nonetheless, you're still losing out on some. Now, the RTA Season Pass, you get about, on equivalency of about 63 weekly, although over the course of the whole Season Pass, free to play, you get 252. Now, what's interesting, though, is you get 600 extra in the paid track, and that's quite a bit more than the free track, because it's like almost 2.5 times more. So you're going from 252 to 852 if you were to buy the RTA pass. Now, some people are buying the RTA pass because it includes teal gear, so that's entirely up to you. But what's interesting, I guess, the strike pass also gives 240 just on the baseline from the free-to-play track. And so if you upgraded from the free-to-play on... It's a lot of money, right? I mean, in some cases, that's $40 for 2 passes every single month. But you're going from 292 over both passes free to play to about 1,452. So, it's an extra 1,000 SBCs per month in that case, and that's actually equivalent to about, as we'll get to, is equivalent to about half a maxed out character in terms of SBCs. So it is a fair value, but is $40 worth that for you? That's something that you're going to have to decide for yourself. Now, adding this all up, this gives us a weekly subtotal of 846. Now, I multiplied that by 4. And that gave us 3,384. Now, there's a few other things that I have not included, and we'll talk about that down below, which we'll get to as a brand new subtotal. So we have the Orange Gear Raid Orbs. Now, I don't think, if you're someone who's running like Doom 2 and Greek 4.3 like I am, you're not really getting a lot of these regular Raid Orbs anymore, because they converted the Greek Raid Orbs to Orange Elite Orbs now. So where you are getting them is like a negligible amount from milestones. They're in the Strike Pass as well. It's about 12 per month. It's not very much. And there might be a few other random places, mostly milestones, maybe events randomly, but there's not a lot of these coming in. So I didn't actually include this because the orbs get a bit complicated to calculate for. And to be honest, it's a little bit beyond what I wanted to do for it. It would get really, really mathy with a lot more columns and numbers that I really wanted to do and share for this video, because I wanted to keep it a bit simple. Perhaps a bit too simple. We'll see. I know I'm going to get some flack in the comments probably for this. So Orange Elite Orbs, you get roughly around, I would say, 15 per day if you're doing Greek 4.3 at 60%, and then Doom 2 daily at the 30% or higher mark. Normally I'm getting about 10.5 Orange Elite Orbs per day, and then the rest from Greek Orbs 4.3 Greek Orange Elite Orbs, damn it. So that's roughly about 15 orbs per day, and then about 105 over the week. Now, how many SBCs do you get? A little bit more as well in the Raid Season and Strike Pass, which I didn't include because it depends on if you're buying or not. But so this is just including the raids part. But how many SBCs do you get from the Orange Elite Orbs? It's kind of random, to be honest. So I know this is not mathematically correct, and people are not going to like this, but I opened 15 orbs, and I got 20 SBCs. So it's totally not a representative sample of like what you're going to get out of 15 orbs, but that's just what I did. So it could be an average range. Maybe I got lucky, maybe I didn't. I don't know. So I got 20 SBCs. I multiplied it by 7. You get about 140 per week in that regard, just from the raids that you're doing. And so over the course of a month, that's about 560. Now, you also get your Orange Gear War Orbs, from Elite Credits, right? And so in Platinum 1, your win-loss average is about 1,575 Elite Credits, because you win 1,700 and loss 1,450. I just divided it by 2 and half because, they kind of push you to a 50% win ratio anyways. And so that means that you're getting about 4.725 of these orbs. So I rounded up. And so what I did was that I opened 5 of these War Orbs just to give, to get an idea of how many SBCs I could get out of that. We talked about this a little bit in the previous video. If you're really crunching on SBCs, this is actually a pretty decent way to get SBCs. And frankly, I know a lot of people are holding out for that teal gear orb, that teal war orb, or whatever's going to come, or maybe not come, right? This is a decent way. And so if you're really crunching on SBCs, you might have to spend your elite credits on this. I ended up getting about 120 SBCs. What's common on the sides of those orbs is 30 and 60 drops. I think there's a 50 drop in there as well. So depending on your luck, you can get a pretty decent chunk of SBCs. So when you're getting about almost 5 of these per week, yeah, that's another decent income, because compared to some of these other sources, 140 and 120, that's in the realm of like some of these other better ones. So it's a good chunk of extra SBCs. So I kind of added the 140 and the 120 plus the 846, and that came up with a new subtotal of 1,106 for weekly, and then 4,424 monthly. Now, this is really important because the average cost of a character to go G13, including the 16 SBC costs, some characters have extra orange gear in their 16 range. It's about 1,900. So this is the average Darkhold cost. What I did is I just went into this one, I added them all up, I divided this number by 5, and that's what it came up to. And so this is the average amount of SBCs, at least for the Darkhold team, and more generally, I would say it's pretty accurate for most of the characters anyways. 1,800, 1,900 is a pretty average cost for SBCs per character. So what that tells you really is that you can take this value of 4,424, and you can take this, divide it by 1,900, and that gets you... Oh, why is it doing that? Is it because I don't have enough space? I don't know why it's doing that. Equals 4424 divided by 1900. There we go. Okay, we'll just do it manually. And so that gets you 2.33, right? And so that means that you can max upgrade roughly about 2.33 characters using the methods above per month. And so that's not a lot, but we are getting about, I would say, 2 to 3 character releases per month as it is right now. The problem is, of course, is that when teams get released, with reworked characters, that becomes a little bit of a problem, because then you have to go back and gear them if you haven't already, especially if they're pre-gear 13, then you would have to go back and stick character, gear into them. And so for a Darkhold team, that's like 5 characters over the span of a month and a half. And so you will run out. If you're in a crunch already, then yeah, you're not going to have enough on a monthly basis to do what needs to be done. Now, one thing that I want to say before we end the video, though, things that were not included, the supply store, In my opinion, it's super bad value for your gold to buy them. It's a lot, and I really wouldn't do it. The War Store, also bad value there for your war credits. Really, you should be using other things for that. Ultra Store, if you guys don't remember, and I'll show you very quickly, they really need to do something about this store because it's absolutely garbage. But you can buy them for the Orange Catalyst Orb. It's like 5 Ultimus Orbs worth for 1 Orange Catalyst Orb, and it's absolutely jank. I don't think you really get that many anyways. 32. Actually, you know what? I still probably wouldn't do it, but is you know, maybe it's not as bad as I thought it was. But yeah, 32 on average, 85% of the time. For 5 Ultimus Orbs, I mean, it's not going to happen very frequently, right? So I'm not sure if I really want to include that in terms of the source, because that's very seldom. Event milestones. This happens from time to time, of course. I think we had some right now, actually, in the anniversary event with some extra SBCs. Very occasionally, we get gifted some SBCs and stuff like that, but realistically, it's not something you can account for. SBC node farming or special events, so like those triple catalyst events, things like that, that's like the only time I would probably do it, but again, you can't really account for that, and I wouldn't recommend farming SBCs on a daily basis. Now, where there is no rewards for SBCs currently, in War, a lot of places have ABCs, but not SBCs, including War, wins and losses. You actually get like 25 ABCs, but there is no SBCs there. Add SBCs to War, wins and losses, please. There's no Orange Catalyst or Gear Orb in the Blitz store. Something that people have been requesting is these things, you know, because they're stacking up for me. I don't need purple gear. Let me spend 2 or 3 times as much to open up orange versions of these. I don't see why they don't have them now. The Orange Catalyst Orb, the Orange Origin Gear, whatever, right? You know, some extra ways to pick that up. I would definitely do that on the Orange Catalyst if that was possible. They're also not in the Arena Orb. So the Arena Orb has quite a big chunk of purple gear, but they don't have any orange gear. So there's a lot of places in the game right now that do not have access to orange gear that probably should. And now I don't know if they will or not, but it's something that they should consider. There's a lot of, you know, Cosmic Crucible store is another place, which obviously hasn't come to the game. I don't know why it was not here, but they, you know, they pushed back Cosmic Crucible. So there was supposed to be a Cosmic Crucible store somewhere in here. It was supposed to be our brand new game mode for patch 6.0, and it never happened. So there's some reasons and some places where we could have more SBCs and more orange gear, but we currently don't have them, and I think that we should. And for how many SBCs that we get on a monthly basis, you guys should be considerate of your own SBC stockpile, unless you're someone who sits on 30k. I know I'm going to get some comments down below saying, hey, yeah, I got 30k, I don't got to worry about it, and that's awesome for you guys. For me, unfortunately, and quite a few other people are a bit on the shorter end, and so we need to be a bit more careful about where we spend our SBCs. So I hope that this video was helpful and informative, and kind of to get you guys thinking about it more broadly, and how many characters that you can expect to gear on a monthly basis or weekly basis or whatever you're doing. So that's the end of the video, and of course, until next time, stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you all later. Boilon signing out.